Arthur wakes up to find that a construction crew outside his house is trying to tear down the building and interrupting his monotonous daily routine. Due to the fact that the head engineer was not informed of this, Arthur rushes to lie down on the ground between the crew and the house. The contention is out of nowhere interfered with by Arthur's dearest companion Portage, who brings a truck loaded with lager to occupy the team while he hauls Arthur away to the bar. Ford starts acting strangely and claims to be an alien from another planet as he drinks more than usual. He shows Arthur that they met when Arthur pushed Ford out of the way just in time when he tried to introduce himself to a car. Ford still feels he owes Arthur for saving his life, and now he wants to save his friend from the impending end of the world on Earth. However, Arthur is saddened by a picture of a woman named Trisha on his phone, which is causing him to be distracted. He had met her at a party, and the two of them liked each other. However, when Trisha asked Arthur to go with her to Madagascar to look for adventure, Arthur said no because he preferred his quiet life in Britain. Trisha was taken away that instant by a flashy man by the name of Zaphod, but Arthur never stopped thinking about her. Their conversation is cut short when Arthur runs back to his house when he hears the sound of demolition and discovers that his house has already been demolished. The crew flees when a massive spaceship appears in the sky and suddenly covers the area in a huge shadow. Ford is unsurprised. All he does is give Arthur a towel and tell him to hold on tight while he raises his thumb, which has a glowing hitchhiking ring that leads them directly into the ship. The Vogan captain of this spaceship sends a message to the entire world announcing that there have been plans to build a hyperspace expressway in the galaxy, and that they will have to destroy Earth to get out of the way. This spaceship is commanded by a bad-tempered and bureaucratic alien species. Before Earth explodes, leaving only dust behind, all humans panic when the planet is suddenly surrounded by Vogan ships. Arthur, on the other hand, finds out that Ford is a journalist who was working on the Earth entry for the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, a universal guidebook with advice for visiting any planet. Arthur doesn't care that there are aliens because he just wants to go home, so Ford has to tell him that the Vogans destroyed Earth. Arthur reads the guide about Vogans and learns that they are the most unpleasant species in the universe and that their poetry is a form of torture while Ford tries to find a hole in the wall to send a new signal with his ring. Arthur also learns that Vogan poetry is a form of torture. Out of nowhere the Vogans see the two men on the surveillance cameras and quickly send an admonition through the speaker, yet Arthur can't comprehend what they're talking about. Ford puts a small fish in his ear and tells him it's the Babel fish, a tiny alien that can make everything you hear sound understandable. Arthur and Ford are kidnapped by a group of Vogans and taken to the captain, who then reads them poetry. Arthur is unable to comprehend the significance of Ford squirming in pain, despite the fact that, to be fair, he cannot even comprehend the poem. Arthur tells a lie when the captain asks for their opinion, saying that it was great and providing a comprehensive analysis of the emotional impact. Anyway, the chief resents it and orders that the pair will get tossed out. After the Vogans push Arthur and Ford out of the ship despite their pleas, the two of them float in panic for a few seconds before a spaceship appears out of nowhere. Within this extremely round ship, Arthur and Ford are now shaped like sofas, but as soon as they scream, they return to their usual shapes. Zaphod, who turns out to be the president of the galaxy, is watching the news in another area of the ship about how he stole the heart of gold. At that point Trisha interferes with him to declare the framework has identified drifters, which the boat got accidentally when they utilized the impossibility drive. Zaphod gets his gun because he thinks they might be with the galaxy police, but Trisha is cautious and sends a robot instead. Marvin is the robot, who turns out to be depressed all the time and can only complain about a situation. Arthur and Ford are picked up by Marvin and led through the ship's corridors by him. As they go through each door, they notice that it talks. In the meantime, in an effort to capture the heart of gold, the Vogans launch thousands of ships into hyperspace. Zaphod's first reaction is to attempt to shoot the two men when Marvin takes them to the president. However, he immediately recognizes Ford, and the two of them hug because they are distant relatives. Arthur is astonished because he recalls Zaphod from the party, but Zaphod is unaware of Arthur's identity. Arthur is delighted to see Trisha again, but when he tries to tell her about Earth, Zaphod takes him aside and threatens him with keeping the information a secret. Arthur is startled to see that Zaphod has carved out a second head that is hidden in his neck. It turns out that you can't be president with a full brain, so Zaphod cut out the second head. He likewise has an extra secret arm that he uses to hit Arthur and humiliate him before Trisha. Out of nowhere, many Vogan ships show up out of nowhere and the Vogan commander along with the universe. VP requests that the gathering give up. The Heart of Gold teleports to a different galaxy as a result of Zaphod's refusal to send the ship into hyperspace. A while later, Arthur approaches Trisha to make up for lost time and shows how envious he is that she left with Zaphod. Trisha uncovers she's changed her name and shows Arthur every one of the cool contraptions the boat has, similar to a machine that guesses what you might be thinking and makes anything that you're longing for. She doesn't regret choosing Zaphod over Arthur because she had always wanted to experience something new and leave their small town. Two mice enter her bag as she searches for Arthur's wound medication and leave the kitchen. After that, Zaphod shows a video to the group to show them why he took the Heart of Gold. A supercomputer known as Deep Thought was built a long time ago with the intention of finding an answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything. The answer, 42, was discovered by Deep Thought after 7 million years. Deep Thought explained that since no one knew what it meant and only knew the answer, they needed to develop a better computer in order to answer the ultimate question. Zaphod must travel to Magrathea in order to answer the ultimate question for fame. This can only be accomplished through trial and error using the Heart of Gold's improbability drive. The ship is teleported to a random point in space by the improbability drive, which occasionally causes passengers to experience bizarre shape-shifting effects that vanish after a few seconds. The crew turns into knitted figurines this time when Zaphod activates it. Arthur is distracted as a result, and the mice are able to remove some of his hair. They discover that they have arrived at Viltvodel V, the residence of Zaphod's political rival, when they return to normal. Zaphod needs to visit him, so they land the boat and meet the Jatravarded public. Who, except the universe was wheezed out of the nose of a being known as the incomparable green Arclesseizure. The gathering interferes with a service petitioning God for the approaching of the incomparable white tissue, and Zaphod meets with his opponent Humma to ask him for the directions to Magrathea. Even though Humma is still upset that Zaphod won the election, he agrees to give him the location if Zaphod brings a legendary gun back from Magrathea. Zaphod acknowledges, and to ensure he returns, Humma takes one of his heads. The gathering leaves with the directions, however when they come out they find the Vogons encompassing the structure. Trisha devises an escape strategy after the Vogons immediately fire and the group hides behind a column. She holds up a vapor sprayer against Zaphod's head. Furthermore, imagines she'll kill him for the Vogons to let her pass. Sadly, the Vogons figure out how to get her and capture her on the spot prior to starting to shoot at the folks once more. Zaphod is grabbed by Arthur and Ford, and they drag him back to the ship so he can get away. Zaphod tries to get the ship to Magrathea, but Arthur stops him and wants to be taken to Vosphere, the Vogons' homeworld, to save Trisha. The ship's AI informs them that the mice have secretly disabled the guidance system and deactivated it. They are forced to use a typical escape cop and fly the same way. Minutes after the fact, the gathering shows up at Vosphere. Ford puts a cap on Zaphod's head so that he can give Zaphod's mind a boost by squeezing lemons every few hours because Zaphod can't think clearly with just one head. Then, at that point, the men start advancing toward Vogon jail, just to experience swatters on the ground that hit them each time they make a stride. Regardless of what they attempt, they can't stop them. Subsequently, the triplet goes through the swatters to arrive at the structure in outright agony. The Vogons question Trisha in the interim, and she finds out that Earth was destroyed. She discovers that Zaphod signed the paperwork without even reading it because he thought he was signing an autograph, which makes her wonder how that could have happened. It has been decided that Trisha will be fed to the rabid bugbladder beast of Troll as punishment for kidnapping the president. At the front desk, the Vogons constantly demand more paperwork and go through a lot of bureaucratic gibberish with the trio. The Vogon realizes that they are attempting to save Trisha and explains that she is not eligible because kidnapping the president is too serious. Zaphod is persuaded by Arthur and Ford that everything was misunderstood, and as a result, they are required to start over and fill out the paperwork using presidential forms. After loads of marking and box ticking, their solicitation is at long last acknowledged. Furthermore, they save Trisha just before she's taken care of to the monster. Anyway, Trisha is upset to see them and slaps Zaphod for obliterating Earth. Additionally, she is enraged at Arthur for lying to her. The group returns the pod to the Heart of Gold, and while Trisha is taking a shower, Arthur approaches her to offer his apologies and to remind her that if he had accepted Madagascar, the planet Earth would have exploded. After that, Zaphod uses the coordinates to direct the improbability drive to take them to Magrathea, putting them through yet more bizarre shapes. At the point when they draw nearer to the planet, they get a pre-recorded message saying the planet has been briefly shut. They get another message that 2 missiles have been sent to destroy their ship, but Zaphod ignores it and tries to land the ship anyway. The computer-based intelligence hands Zaphod manual controls to evade the rockets, which makes the whole boat shake like there's no tomorrow. Utilizing the implausibility drive as is this hazardous, however Arthur chooses to press the button at any rate. They realize that they are in the same spot after a brief turbulence, and that the drive has instead affected the missiles. One transformed into a vase of petunias, and the other became a whale experiencing an existential crisis prior to its demise. The group is now able to land safely and explore Magrathea, where they come across numerous portals. Arthur is still too afraid of the unknown dangers to participate in the argument about which one they should take. Ford and Zaphod quickly follow Trisha as she ignores the guys and enters a random portal. Arthur continues to hesitate, and when he finally decides, the portal has already been closed. Arthur sits with Marvin without knowing what to do. A man named Slarty Bartfarst finds him and takes him into another portal, leaving Marvin behind. Slarty Bartfarst assures Arthur that his friends are safe. They appear in a room loaded up with smaller than normal universes as Slarty Bartfarst makes sense of his work comprises of planning and making planets, and it was his organization that made Earth, yet the destruction had been an unplanned mistake. After that, Slarty Bartfarst takes Arthur to the planet factory, where he informs him that they are working on finishing a copy of Earth that was in the system backup. Ford, Trisha, and Zaphod finally reach Deep Thought, where they discover the computer watching television. The bad news comes from Deep Thought when they inquire about the ultimate question. The question-posing computer had been on Earth, so it has been destroyed. The group is dissatisfied, but they also recall the other part of the mission and search for the gun, which is located inside the computer. This is the point of view gun, which temporarily alters one's perspective to that of the shooter. Because housewives wanted their husbands to listen to them, they created it, so women are immune. Trisha quickly shoots Zaphod with it to make him comprehend the reason why she's irate, yet hearing him talk her own considerations causes Trisha to understand that she's upset since she's found life is good for nothing and that she's been bouncing from one person to another to fill the opening in her heart, yet she overlooked the one person that could genuinely figure out her. They see a few mice before a light blinds them when a door suddenly opens behind them. Back to Arthur. He hears the narrative of Earth being a commission paid by mice, who are the most insightful species in the world. Humans had been misled into thinking they were being experimented on by mice throughout all of this time. Then Slarty Bartfarst takes Arthur to a reproduction of his home, and Arthur cheerfully runs inside just to track down Portage, Trisha, and Zaphod at the breakfast table. Additionally, there are two talking mice who claim that, in order to answer the ultimate question of life, they have been studying humans and will need Arthur's actual brain to complete the experiment. Out of nowhere, Arthur is controlled on his seat and two little saws seem to begin the strategy while his companions nod off as a result of something that the mice put in the food. Arthur asks philosophical questions in an effort to distract the mice, but he soon starts talking about his own feelings and how much fun he's had compared to his entire life this week. He likewise discusses Trisha, however, since the mice couldn't care less about affection, they continue with the saws. At that point, Arthur manages to break the chains and smashes the mice with a bowl, discovering that the two aliens who made Deep Thought are actually who they say they are. After that, hundreds of Vogons have landed outside with Marvin and the vice president, ready to rescue Zaphod from his alleged abductors, prompting everyone to awaken as the house begins to shake. The group quickly flees and hides behind an RV, accidentally dropping the gun. Marvin is shot in the back of the head when he tries to join them, and he falls, appearing to be dead. The Vogons fire once more as the group hides inside the RV, causing it to crash to the ground. Marvin suddenly reactivates and fires the gun on the Vogons just as it looks like all hope is lost. This immediately makes them all depressed, and they all fall to the ground without the energy to do their jobs. After that, Slarty Bartfarst shows up to say that the new Earth is now ready, so he wonders if Arthur thinks anything is missing. Trisha agrees to go with Arthur on the next adventure, and the couple departs together in the Heart of Gold to go to the restaurant at the end of the universe. Arthur states that the